North Korea has recently shocked the world by releasing unexpected and very interesting images of Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un driving his new generation M-2020 tank. These photos gave us a full understanding of whether we should be afraid of their main battle tank or whether it's just a fiction and a combination of parts of some tractor and cardboard held together with tape. Probably if you watch this video in North Korea, someone will knock on your door and say, 10 years in prison for you. But let's talk about the tank. The M-2020 was first unveiled in October 2020 during a military parade in honor of the 75th anniversary of the Communist North Korean Workers' Party. A total of 9 of these armored vehicles with equipment similar to modern optical fire control systems and even with active defense systems drove down the main street during the parade. There are many questions about this tank, starting with why it has an anti-tank guided missile, whether it's a good idea, whether it'll be mass-produced and widely used, and what is North Korea's experience in tank warfare in general. Let's try to figure it out. During the Korean War of 1950 to 1953, North Korea had no tanks of its own and relied on only 200 Soviet T-34 tanks. But as soon as the United States entered the field, these North Korean tanks were defeated by American aircraft and more advanced American tanks. It's still an indisputable fact that North Korea does not have much experience in operating modern tanks. Historically, the DPRK has always used components from Russian tanks. However, the trade embargo against them prevented North Korea from obtaining advanced tank technology. That's why the M-2020 should become a symbol of their defense industry's ability to produce. But typically, their entire production was based on the Frankenstein concept, with all previous tanks incorporating the T-62 base with various additions from other tanks such as the T-72 and Type 88. But if you look at the M-2020, you'll see 7 road wheels, which means that this is not just a modernized T-62, but actually a completely new tank that we've not seen before. North Korea currently has 3 tank models in service. They've got Cheonma-ho, Hokpung-ho, and Songun 915. In total, there are 3,500 to 4,000 of them today. Usually, every new tank is a slightly modernized old one. But for some reason, the M-2020 broke this trend and took a completely opposite approach, trying to make a leap forward. An impressive variety of systems appear on the M-2020 turret. There's a separate thermal imaging sight for the commander on the right side with a gunner's seat below it, as well as a remote weapon system with its own thermal imaging sight. And it's here that one of the strangest elements of the tank catches your eye, making you scratch the back of your head and think, oh, what's this? The M-2020 has a dual ATGM launcher for 2 rounds of 5 ATGMs located on the right side of the turret. In addition of anti-tank guided missiles to a main battle tank is not a new idea, but it's very questionable, at least because of the price. A single M829 series projectile costs less than $10,000, while a single anti-tank guided missile costs about $180,000. There are also issues with weight. The ATGM weighs just over 60 pounds, while the Sabot projectile weighs less than 46 pounds. After all, adding an ATGM to a tank does not give it a better chance of winning, but it can make it much more difficult to transport the tank and operate it. The launchers that we usually see on vehicles like the Bradley are primarily used as defensive weapons against tanks, as their 25 or 30 millimeter guns do not have enough power to penetrate armor. To put it another way, modern tanks do not need external ATGM launchers because their main guns can strike faster, more accurately, cheaper, and more reliably. So why did North Korea install it? I don't have a clear answer to that. I have no direct contact with Kim. But personally, I think it's just a military show. They added these ATGMs because they look damn cool. Or should I say, threatening and scary? But all this is just for show, as there's no special place to store additional missile ammunition, and reloading would also be virtually impossible, since placing the missile launcher outside would require several crew members to get off the tank and reload it. Other vehicles get around this problem by having rear hatches that allow the crew to stay inside to reload, but the M-2020 visually has nothing like that. It's a laughing matter, but the ATGMs on the tank are the last analog of the Cornet missile. According to North Korean reports, they can penetrate 1,100 millimeter steel armor from a distance of 2 miles and also have a direct hit function. So perhaps they installed the ATGM because they feared that their main gun will not be able to penetrate all enemy tanks. Another interesting fact is that the M2020 has 3 separate auxiliary weapon systems. In addition to the ATGM, the tank is equipped with an AGS-30 automatic grenade launcher, which is complemented by a 7.62mm twin machine gun. It all looks like brightly colored animal feathers that are meant to scare away predators. The specific location of the turret is also interesting, as it implies that the crew will consist of 4 people, one of whom will be a gunner. However, we saw only 3 crew members in all the press releases. Perhaps North Korean tankers are either too shy or not photogenic enough to appear in front of the cameras. To complete the issue of armament, we need to talk about the main 125mm gun, which is derived from the Russian Tu-46. It has an effective range of about 9,800 feet for thermal or high explosive projectiles, but this variety of projectiles in the tank is only on paper. According to almost all reports, North Korea does not have the capability to produce and maintain multiple types of ATGMs. Having more than one type of missile on one tank makes no practical or tactical sense. The Ryukyung SU, the North Korean defense company, I just mispronounced, visually combined the American M1 Abrams and the Russian T-14 Armata, adding the Chinese VT-4, and thus created the legendary M2020. This has led to some speculation that China or Russia provided some assistance in the development of the tank. The speed with which it was developed and demonstrated indicates that either North Korea's production capabilities have increased, or more likely that other countries, including Russia, China, and Iran, are relaxing their trade restrictions. The choice of camouflage for the desert was also interesting, as it's completely inappropriate on the Korean peninsula, but similar to most modern tanks on which it's based. Nevertheless, the latest images of the tank in 2024 show that it's received a darker green color that's already better suited to the geography of North Korea. One of the amazing technologies that was found on the 9 existing M2020s was also highlighted in the images. This is an active defense system that impressed everyone with its power. They're rarely found on tanks because their cost can be extremely high. Visually, these APS launchers are most similar to their Russian Afghanite system, while the ASA side-looking radar detectors for the launchers are more similar to those installed on Abrams. According to reports, the Afghanite systems are capable of intercepting large-caliber tank shells flying at a speed of about 5 Mach. Since the installation of APS is expensive and can be complicated, there was a lot of speculation as to whether it was real or some kind of paper mock-up. However, in the summer of 2023, videos emerged showing the M2020 systems effectively destroyed an MLRS projectile. Of course, it's still probably North Korean Hollywood magic that can do anything. However, it's much easier to intercept a projectile from a MLRS than a tank projectile because it flies much slower. And given the fact that in the 21st century, tank versus tank is an extremely rare occurrence, this may not be the worst compromise. In terms of protection, the side flaps on the wheels and the rear armor add even more visual similarity to the Russian T-14, while the tank's tracks are more similar to those of Western tanks and look like rubber tracks with double pins, which provides greater strength and reliability. The armor of the tank is similar to that of the Iranian Zulfikar III, and according to current reports, the composite materials from which it's made are not inferior to third-generation tanks such as the T-80 and T-90. This is another reason to talk about cooperation between Iran and North Korea. As for the engines on the M2020, we're still waiting for Kim to get up the courage to show us the powertrain, but several technical features of the tank give us a pretty good idea of what to expect. The tank has a large rear engine compartment, which is expected to accommodate an upgraded version of the 12-cylinder Hokpung-ho engine. This will give the M2020 approximately 1,200 horsepower. So far, there's only information about the power of the tank, and it's clear that it's enough to carry at least one burly dictator who, after driving it, declared the M2020 the most powerful tank in the world and that North Korea should continue to prepare for war. It's difficult to say whether the M2020 will be an effective tank, as there's very little information about it, and the fact that it's only 4 years old and has only been shown on camera 4 times tells us that in its current state, it's not likely ready for operation. However, the M2020s that are currently in service are a mixture of a prototype and a weapons test bed. Nevertheless, it's important to understand that although some in North Korea are undoubtedly exaggerating their capabilities, and that the capabilities of this tank are still far from what the Western military has in service today, this tank is real, and we can see that they can still realize some of its characteristics.